So PPID, EMS and ID are all different terms. They describe different things, but there's a lot of confusion about what they mean. So we're going to go through each of them in turn. We'll start with ID, or insulin dysregulation. So in horses, insulin dysregulation really means that insulin levels are too high, either at baseline, when the horse hasn't really eaten anything, or after the horse has eaten something, so as a post-feeding response. It can also mean that the horse's tissues don't respond normally to the hormone insulin. When people hear about insulin, they often think about diabetes, but it's important to remember that in horses, we have a slightly different process. We do sometimes see diabetes in horses, but what's much more common is very high levels of insulin rather than levels of insulin that are too low. So ID, or insulin dysregulation, is really describing a situation where the horse has got abnormally high levels of insulin at some time of the day, either at rest or after eating. Let's move on to EMS. So EMS, or equine metabolic syndrome, again is a term, and it's just there to describe the fact that we often see insulin dysregulation together with other features. So we quite commonly see insulin dysregulation in horses of certain breeds, horses that are a little bit older, and also horses that are overweight, either generally overweight or that have accumulations of fat in certain areas, such as the cresty neck, bulging just above the eyes, or often over the rump and behind the shoulder. It's really important to remember that whilst these things often happen together, they don't always happen together. We see horses with high insulin levels that are thin, that are young, and of all different breeds and types. So it's important to remember that these things are clues. The obesity is a clue, but it's not the be-all and end-all. The other thing that's important in the term EMS is it also describes the fact that these horses with high insulin levels are more likely to develop laminitis. Let's move on to PPID. So PPID is a bit of a mouthful. It stands for Pituitary Pars Intermedia Dysfunction. So what we're describing here is that part of the pituitary gland, which sits at the base of the brain, is behaving abnormally. It usually means that that part of the brain is enlarged and is producing higher levels of hormones. And it produces a wide variety of different hormones. Those hormones can then go on to cause symptoms in the horses, which we'll see and recognise as the signs of PPID, also known as equine Cushing's disease. PPID horses might or might not have insulin dysregulation. So some of them do have insulin dysregulation, some of them don't. It is likely that PPID can contribute to making that insulin dysregulation worse when we get the two things happening together. So to summarise, I think the thing to remember is that these are three different terms that describe different things. Insulin dysregulation, from a practical perspective in horses, means that insulin levels are too high at some parts of the day. Equine metabolic syndrome just describes the fact that we often see insulin dysregulation in certain types of horses and in association with laminitis. And finally, PPID really describes what the pituitary gland is doing. That term itself doesn't tell us anything about the insulin state of that horse.